Our first speaker is Gary Shaw. He's from the Gary Shaw lives 6 miles from Indian Point and became involved in the effort to close Indian Point after the February 2000 steam pipe rupture at Indian Point 2 that released radioactive steam into the atmosphere and radioactive water into the Buchanan sewer system that flowed into the Hudson. He is a member of the core group of the Indian Point Safe Energy Coalition and the steering committee of the local grassroots organization, Croton Close Indian Point. Gary Shaw.
Thank you all for coming. One of the things I'd like to start out with is to remind everybody that there is an ongoing disaster in Japan. Unfortunately, the press isn't covering it because it's not glamorous. It doesn't have explosions continuing to happen. But Fukushima is far from stable. Fukushima is still releasing radiation. I have here an update from the Nuclear Information Resource Service. This is from May 20th. Among the pieces of information is that there's more and more evidence that the damage began before the tsunami hit. The earthquake damaged critical systems. And so Jim Steitz, the spokesperson for Entergy, who keeps saying that the earthquake didn't do damage, it was the tsunami, was premature, and as usual, was inaccurate. Another part of this update is that the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution says that the impact on the world's oceans by Fukushima exceeds the impact of Chernobyl. In fact, the impact is 10 times higher. When a nuclear plant goes bust, it's a global issue. It's not a local issue. And our evacuation plan is for 10 miles when our government told people, Americans in Japan, to evacuate at least 50 miles, and there was radiation in Tokyo's water 120 miles from Fukushima. This is a global issue. And now I'd like to talk about how bad the NRC is. I give them an F- for putting safety of our population before the profits of the operators. Things that we've been yelling about for years are now finally making the press. Here's the Daily News. Local nukes skip fire regs. Most of the fire stations in Indian Point don't have firefighting equipment. Here's Matthew Wald in the New York Times. The U.S. was warned about the hydrogen vents that failed in Japan, and the U.S. was warned, and these are the same hydrogen vents that are in Indian Point's spent fuel pools. Here's another article from the Science Times of the New York Times that says, when all isn't enough to stop a catastrophe, the bottom line is that a nuclear plant anywhere can have a major problem at any time, and it doesn't take a natural disaster. Chernobyl was not a natural disaster. 3 Mile Island was not a natural disaster. Davis-Besse, which most people don't know about, came within a half an inch of breach of containment. Why? Because the NRC director at that point, despite the fact that his on-site inspectors said that there was lots of corrosion and they should shut the plant to investigate, the supervising inspector made a deal with the operator and said, we'll let them go until their next refueling. At that point, they found out that they came awfully close. When you talk to the NRC, you often hear the term lessons learned. What lessons learned by the NRC really means is that, oh, we didn't realize that was a problem, or, yeah, we looked at it and decided it wasn't that big a problem. The NRC should have a motto that says, better safe than sorry, but their motto really is, it's probably good enough, and that's not good enough. And here's a real life, and I'd just like to say one other thing. Here's a real life example. That supervisor, who was roundly criticized by the Inspector General's office of the NRC for putting operator profitability in front of population safety, wound up at Indian Point, and the lesson he learned is that I might as well reduce fire safety standards at Indian Point because they put in insulation that was supposed to last an hour and it only lasts for 24 minutes. Let's change the regulations. That's what lessons learned mean to the NRC? And it's about time somebody stood up and said the NRC is not doing their job. They are not protecting the public. They are simply enablers of the industry. And this has also been documented in numerous newspaper articles now, and this is what we've been saying all along. Tonight, you'll hear from other people who have other issues. Thank you for coming.